Fortunate to have the Young Bucks singers here from Omaha. They're going to perform a song here in a minute, and we'll start with that. Appreciate you being here. Thank you. Thank you, Young Bucks, for that song. Appreciate that. It's good to have you here. Dakiapi, Chanwashtea Napechi Yuzapielo. Kachanku Heska Imacha Kielo, Ma Lakota. Please forgive my broken Lakota. I'm learning. My relatives, I give you a warm handshake. My name is High Mountain Road. I am Lakota. My Christian name is Kevin Abarask. I am the managing editor for Indians.com, a Native American news website. I also serve as vice chairman of the Lincoln Indian Center Board of Directors. I want to thank all of you for joining us here tonight while we stand in solidarity with our young Santee relative, Micah Taylor. I also want to thank those who helped organize this event, including Nebraskans for Peace, the Lincoln Indian Center, and the Dandelion Network of Lincoln. I also want to thank Phyllis Stone for saying the prayer tonight, and to the Young Bucks for providing their songs tonight. Wopila Tonka. Before I ask my elder to say tonight's prayer, I want to say a few words about her. I met Phyllis Stone many years ago, not long after moving to Lincoln from my home in South Dakota. She has become my spiritual and cultural mentor and an advisor to me in nearly everything I do. She is a respected Rosebud Lakota elder who has become a speaker and cultural presenter in Lincoln and beyond. She holds a bachelor's degree in education and is a lifelong learner and community volunteer. Thank you, Phyllis.
Thank you so much, Kevin. Am I on? I bet I'm not on. Oh my goodness. It's really hard for me to speak in front of a microphone because I'm usually over here doing something or showing something and the microphone is clear way over there. But I will offer a prayer for us tonight, and we have some sage burning to help cleanse us and to cleanse the area. I hope somebody is doing this for Micah whenever. He needs to be cleansed all the time. He needs to be thankful for his life. He needs to be grateful that he lives in Lincoln, in Omaha, Nebraska. But he needs to hope for a better life. A way better life. If you'll stand, if you can, I will say a small prayer. I don't believe in going on and on and on and on because I think we all can offer our own words while I am praying. Thank you so much. Hilamaya tunkashila. Vichoni miyakuki. Navopila hecha tunkashila. Hilamaya. Thank you for letting us gather here, come together like we are, even though it is for such an unjust, unfair predicament. If we must accept this, help us do it in a good way, Tunkashila. Help us. We can lean on you at any time, I know. If there is another way, help us find it. Micah is such a young person, such a young guy. We cannot allow him to be there for such a long time. Ilamiya, Midakuye, Oyasi. I always tell Kevin, I don't say a lot, and he's still clear way over there.
Thank you for that beautiful, if brief, prayer, Phyllis. Next, I'd like to introduce a woman who has become a close friend of mine, a trusted ally and a tireless volunteer in Lincoln. Susan Alleman is the administrator for Nebraskans for Peace. It's a statewide peace and social justice organization, and she is the co-host of tonight's event along with me. Susan, thank you for everything you do for your community and for your state.
Hello. I would first like to thank Kevin and all of you for allowing me to speak here at this very important event. My name is Susan Alleman, and I work for Nebraskans for Peace, the oldest statewide peace and justice organization in the country. We are celebrating our 50-year anniversary next year, which is quite a feat for a liberal organization in a conservative state. Nebraskans for Peace is a social justice organization committed to giving support and voice to the populations that are regularly abused and treated unfairly in our society. We stand with Natives today as we stood for decades with Natives from the Pine Ridge Reservation in the fight to shut down the liquor stores in White Clay. We will not stop speaking up and resisting the current state of racial injustice that is so prevalent in our mainstream, white, male-dominated society. None of us can be silent until everyone is treated fairly. I imagine that we are not going anywhere for a while. I am a non-Native ally, and I am outraged at the harsh and unfair sentence that has been given to Micah Taylor, the lack of medical attention he is receiving for a potentially life-threatening injury. And this happening not long after the police were acquitted for the death of Zachary Bearheels. And before him, the injustices that have occurred to countless other Natives and people of color, not only in Omaha, but all throughout Nebraska. Our judicial system is oftentimes broken for those that are not part of the dominant white privileged culture. Our law enforcement is often biased against non-whites. Both are skewed to favor white people and people with money. I don't think this is news to anyone. I am here to call on and motivate other white people to stand up, to use your privilege and your position in this society to take a stand, to loudly object to the practices that unfairly impact the non-white members of our society. There is an insensitivity to people that are not members of this privileged white majority, and we have to ensure that the law is administered equally. These are institutions that have had patterns of racist actions for decades. The media has only told this story from the side of the police. Where is the balance? The Omaha power structure wants to squash this story. They don't want people to know that a police officer shot an unarmed young man in the neck. They will not release the police footage of the encounter, and they will not release the medical records to the media or to the public. If this is such a clear case, what are they trying to hide? I feel helpless. I am sure a lot of you do as well. That is why we are all here. We want to do something, but what? Let's flood the judge's office with calls of outrage at his unfair sentence. Let's flood the newspapers with letters to the editor, making sure the full narrative is told and not just what they want us to know. Micah is a young man who is not perfect, but he is a human being that deserves to be treated that way. Would he have received this harsh of a sentence for his actions if he was a young, white man of an upper middle class family?
No way!
I think we all know the answer to that question. If you are on social media, use your voice, make waves. Micah needs us to be his voice. Let's all show up for him.
Thank you, Susan, for your heartfelt words. I'd like to offer a few words of my own. For 17 years, I worked as a reporter at a mainstream newspaper in Lincoln. My job was to dispassionately cover events like this and to lend great credence to authorities who had something to say about events like this. I was trained to look suspiciously on the people who organized and attended events like this. You were all hippies, radicals, activists. Today, my job is a little different. As managing editor of Indians.com, my job is to not dispassionately cover events like this, and it is most definitely not to lend credence only to authorities who have something to say about events like this. We as Native Americans in this colonized nation have lost our voice. It's one of the first things that the colonizers stole from us. First by wiping out those Native leaders who stood up and fought back, and later by forcing our children into boarding schools and stripping them of their native language and identity. It's been a long road for us to win back our voice, but people like the late Frank Lemire, whom I called friend, showed us that we could and should have a voice in this country. Frank Lemire taught each of us that we must stand up and be counted when the authorities, who get to decide the fate of our children, decide to throw our lives away and the lives of our children because they assume we are all drunks and criminals whose lives don't matter anyway. Frank taught me that my job was no longer to watch idly by and report dispassionately as my relatives were murdered and incarcerated because of circumstances they did not create and they did not control. You know, the last press conference I attended with Frank in early March outside the office of Douglas County Attorney Don Klein, just a day after Mr. Klein dropped charges against Omaha officer Ryan McClarty for punching a mentally ill Lakota man, Zachary Bareheels, 13 times just minutes before Zachary died. That day, Frank asked me to stand beside him and share my thoughts with news reporters about the cases against Officer McClarty and fellow officer Scotty Payne, who was acquitted in December of tasing Zachary a dozen times. When someone like Frank asks you to talk, you do it. Because I knew he was saying that it was time for me to step out of the shadows and to help my Native people retake control of the narrative. As Native people, we have to understand that they control the narrative. That was perfectly clear in courtroom 414 on Monday when Judge Thomas Otepka decided to lend great credence to the Omaha police officer who was injured in this encounter with Micah Taylor and the officer's family. Judge Otepka decided their story, their narrative, was the only one worth hearing in that courtroom, the only one that mattered when it came to deciding the fate of our young Santee relative. But I want all of you to know that Micah's narrative matters too, and that it is up to us to ensure that his story is told too. Micah wasn't a thug, just some low-level pot dealer whose life should have been so easily tossed aside because of a 2-minute encounter that ended with an injured officer and a bullet in Micah's neck. The day before he was arrested, in fact, Micah was at home getting ready to send boxes and bags full of clothes and toys to the Santee Sioux reservation, items he had collected on his own. And it wasn't the first time he had done this for his Native people. For several years, he had collected and often paid for with his own money instruments that he sent to the White Earth Ojibwe Reservation in Minnesota to be used by children there. Micah loves his Native brothers and sisters and had big plans to start various nonprofit organizations that might one day lift his relatives out of poverty, crime, and addiction. He still has those dreams. Micah loves his family dearly and helped support his ailing mother, Deanna. Likely that was what he was doing on March 8, 2018, when he sold marijuana to a police informant. According to his own spiritual advisor, Micah was on his way to a sweat lodge that day when he was stopped by an Omaha police officer and asked to step out of his vehicle. Micah didn't heed the officer's demand. Seeing the officer emerge from an unmarked car, Micah became concerned about whether the officer was indeed a legitimate law enforcement representative. So he refused to get out of his car when asked by the officer to do so, instead asking to speak to his attorney. What happened next varies depending on who you ask. The officer says Micah reached across his seat to grab something. The officer became fearful that he was reaching for a gun and ordered him to stop. When he didn't and began driving away, the officer became stuck in Micah's door and was dragged. As he was being dragged, the officer began shooting, striking Micah in the back of the neck, before freeing himself from the vehicle. Micah then drove away before being caught by police a few miles down the road. Micah tells the story like this. As he reached across his seat to grab his attorney's business card, he heard shots and felt something strike the back of his neck. He hit the gas pedal to get away from the officer, who he thought had decided to kill him. He was caught a few miles down the road. Now, all of these facts would have been told in a courtroom before a jury if Micah's attorney hadn't decided that it wasn't worth his time to take Micah's case to court, instead convincing Micah and his mother to enter a guilty plea in the hopes of gaining a lighter sentence. Indeed, when Micah and his mother came to court on Monday, they fully expected Micah would receive a 3-year sentence at most. And when Judge Otepka told the courtroom that he was sentencing Micah to 30 to 50 years, Deanna Taylor gasped. She turned to her supporters behind her, including myself, and asked, "Did he just get 30 years?" Now, seeing Diana's tears and hearing the utter disbelief in her voice on Monday is what brings me here today. I'm also here because I can't stand the idea of this young man having to face an indefinitely long time behind bars, with a bullet still lodged in his neck, so close to his spine that doctors say if he moves his head too abruptly to the left or to the right, or hits the back of his neck on anything, he risks paralyzation or death. Now, how long do you expect he'll be able to stay on his feet at the Nebraska State Prison or the penitentiary in Lincoln? How long will he be able to keep from turning his head too abruptly left or to the right? Indeed, prison time often means watching your own back from other prisoners. Because of his injury, Micah literally can't watch his own back. And the fact that prison officials have not taken any significant action to remove the bullet from Micah's neck after 554 days of incarceration says something about their lack of respect for this young man's human dignity. So what can we do to demonstrate our own respect for the human dignity of our Santee relative? A wise person asked me this week, why are we having this rally? What do you want to achieve? I'll be honest, it was a tough question to answer. I know why I was helping organize this event. Twice I've interviewed Micah by phone, and at least a dozen times I've interviewed his dear mother, Deanna. Through those conversations and in other conversations I've had with others who have known Micah and Deanna for much longer than I have, I've come to believe in my heart that they are well-intentioned people who have great love within their hearts for Native people and for all people. Deanna Taylor's only request as far as this event went was that it not become an angry mob shouting insults or curse words at those in the law enforcement community or in the judicial system. Now, this is a woman whose son was just sentenced to nearly a lifetime behind bars. And her main concern about a rally to support her son was that nobody slander the very people whose decisions and actions have almost surely doomed any chance she has to see her son grow into a fully functional and capable Santee Sioux man. That in itself should tell you all you need to know about Deanna Taylor. What I would like to see for those of us gathered here is to begin the process of finding additional legal support for Micah, so we can challenge his sentence and to challenge the very judicial system that is attempting to bury its mistake of shooting an unarmed man by imprisoning that man for 3 to 5 decades. In the coming days, we plan to establish a GoFundMe to provide financial support for Micah's legal appeals and any other legal tactics we might identify. I would also like to see action taken to hold Judge Thomas Otepka accountable for his egregiously harsh sentence of this young man. Send letters to the editor, to the Omaha World Herald, and to the Lincoln Journal-Star, condemning his sentence of Micah Taylor. Reach out to media within the TV stations here and the radio stations. Tell them Micah's story. And I would like to see all of us begin to retake control of our own narratives and our own stories, and to help each other tell Micah's story so he isn't forgotten, so that he does have a chance to face a future that isn't behind bars, always looking in fear too quickly left or right. Aho. Wopila Tonka. Thank you. I have a statement here from Micah that he shared with his mother today. Micah wants to thank everyone for being here to support him. He is worried about getting the money he needs to hire a lawyer to appeal this case. Micah wants musicians and music lovers to unite and collect instruments under Chief Joseph for the suicide prevention program. There are cards if you're interested in helping. He would also like some support for a program called Sacred Hoop Justice Program that him and his mother would like to start as well. So those are his thoughts. I did speak to Deanna on the way here from Lincoln, and she did mention to me, and I hope you don't mind me mentioning to the rest of the people here, but Mike is in shock. You know, he's in disbelief right now, as you can imagine. You know, sitting behind bars, injured in the way that he is, not knowing what tomorrow is going to bring, not knowing if there's any hope for him beyond a life in that prison. So. Next, I would like to introduce you to a man I met in July when I watched him count coup on a bar in downtown Sioux City, Iowa, that serves alcohol to visibly intoxicated Native people. Michael O'Connor's passion in advocating for the human rights of his Native brothers and sisters that day inspired me. He is a Yankton Sioux social worker, an artist, and is writing a book. He is also currently one of 5 candidates for Sioux City Council in Sioux City. Please help me in welcoming Michael Patrick O'Connor.
Carl, thank you, brother. Can everybody hear me out there? I have a real loud voice. Should I go up a little bit higher? Okay, I have no problem doing that. And out of respect for Micah's family, I'm going to do my best to respect their wishes. Michazeki, Michael Patrick Wambadi Gadeska O'Connor, Ihankwan Oyate Mataha. Chantewashde Yuha Nape Chiuzapi. What I did was I introduced myself. Let me introduce myself again. Michazeki, Michael Patrick Wambadi Gadeska O'Connor, Ga Ihankwan Oyate Mataha. Chantewashde Yuha Nape Chiuzapi. I'm from the Yankton Sioux Nation. My name is Michael Patrick. Wambadi Gadeska translates to spotted eagle in our family's way. And I've been living down the river a little ways in Sioux City, Iowa for most of my life, here and there, on and off the reservation. And I was called here today because of something that I feel really strongly about. And so when I received that request to come and speak, I've been thinking a lot, and there's a lot of stress involved in doing these type of things. There's a lot of spirit involved in doing these type of things. I get very angry. I take after my mom. My mom's got one of those personalities that she's just kind of all over the place. She likes to talk. She is very outspoken. And so for me to actually have to tone it down is going to take some effort. Not just because of my personality, but because of what we as Native people go through every day. Just being alive, just being born Native into this world. You would have thought that they would have thought that it was illegal just to show up on these steps in the way that I look. You'd have thought that the way that we are treated, that just being alive is illegal. That you'd have thought that we'd have just being showing up, we'd just be arrested. Because I don't know about you, but I have a lot of relatives out there, and I see you all, whether you're not Native or whether you're Native. I thank you that you're here to support, because we need your support. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my list. I made a list. I have to make a list sometimes because there's so much energy behind these issues, so much information behind the things that I say and how I feel, so much energy behind these things that has nothing to do with our grandmas and grandpas on the other side that suffered, that fought, that died, so that we could sit here, stand together today bravely in front of this hall of injustice and be able to have this conversation. If it were up to them, we wouldn't be here. They made that quite clear, that if it were up to them, we wouldn't be here. There'd be laws set aside just for showing up in the way that we do. And even if you were an ally, they would arrest you. Up until 1978, that was the fact. Just having this conversation in my lifetime, we would all be going to jail. And so there is a lot of energy behind my words today. And so I'm going to get my notebook out, and I'm gonna say some things that I've written down. And so if the family, I'll try and keep it low, because to me that's exactly what it is, and that's exactly what we're going to find out. when we begin to pursue this. And that's why we need those numbers to back that up. That is public information. We have the right to ask for that type of information. And if this is anything like Sioux City, and I guarantee you it is, they will try and close the door on those type of questions. They will find any excuse not to answer those type of questions. You know, I talked about, they want to treat us like it's a crime to be Native American, like it's a crime to live in poverty, like it's a crime to want to sing songs, like it's a crime to want to burn sage, like it's a crime to want to pray, like it's a crime to want to stand for one of our own and be like how our grandmas and grandpas before us were, like it's a crime. If it were up to them, just go away, be a good little Indian, don't say anything, don't ruffle anybody's feathers, don't sing any songs, don't be Indian, and everything will be just fine. As long as you stay as that good little Indian, we won't bother you. And that's why there are just so many of us left, for crying out loud, in this country. Oh my gosh, I hate reading off of these type of things. And again, I don't want to disrespect the family, but I just sense you can catch the vibe of injustice of a community. You can catch the vibe, and like they say, if you keep approaching, a dog can be as nice as it possibly can, but you keep approaching it, and finally you back it into the corner, and as soon as its tail touches the wall, it's gonna come after you. And I don't think that there should be any shame in our game, because this is about our grandmas and grandpas. This is about our people. This is about our survivals. If they get away from this one, trust me, they're gonna want something next. They know that there's a problem. To me, I think the whole situation is turned around. It isn't Micah that is the lawbreaker. If it would have been me, I know darn well, since I was this high, I've been trained by society, you be a good little Indian, you say yes sir, and if you talk back, you're gonna pay the price. I'll tell you what, you put anybody in that car, me, somebody starts, a police officer anyway makes me nervous. But as soon as that gun comes out, I know I'm gonna get killed. That's been our experience, is that I know that I'm gonna get shot. Guess what I'm doing? I'm taking off. I'm trying to save my life because I know what I'm looking at, because I see it everywhere I go in other people's eyes, the hate. When we speak up, just be a good little Indian, and unless you say something, then that look appears in their eyes. I know that look. I'd have took off too to save my own life. If he'd be dead if he didn't take off. And I don't think it surprises anybody, the result of that decision. The surprising part, unfortunately, is when somebody says, you have a point, come and tell me more. I have an office, come on in, I invite you, tell me more. That is the exception. We don't get that. And so it's the police officers that are the lawbreakers. It's the judges that are the lawbreakers. It's the legislatures that are the lawbreakers. And if we stand silent, we are the lawbreakers. And God knows that any time I drive down the street or walk down the street, I will not be held hostage I refuse to be held hostage. But our young ones like this, that's why I'm so glad that they're here. Because they need to see us together like this, so they don't have to be held hostage. I will not be held hostage no more. We cannot be held hostage anymore. Arrest me then. I really don't know how to end this. All I know is that there's a problem, and we're going to do something about it. We're going to fix this problem. I guarantee you, they want us to go away. We're not going to go away. Don't be angry, they said. I'm angry. Be a good little Indian, they said. Well, if standing up for my people makes me a bad Indian, then I'm a bad Indian. And I'm just learning to, our relatives, I want to say thank you for, please forgive me if I were to step out of line along these ways, but, we're here to do something good. And I just want to thank you for listening, and I look forward to meeting and talking, be relatives with each and every single one of you, because we need to be in this together. You know that, I know that. We need to let them know that in this hall of injustice. They should be ashamed of themselves. They're the lawbreakers.
Thank you, Michael, for those powerful words. Oh. Now, Micah was a citizen of the Santee Sioux tribe. I did reach out to the tribe, as well as leaders from all 4 Nebraska tribes. Fortunately, none of them could make it tonight. I did receive a statement, though, from the Santee Sioux tribal president, Roger Trudell, that I'll read now. The Santee Sioux tribe of Nebraska strongly condemns the decision by District Court Judge Thomas A. Otepka to sentence one of our tribal citizens to nearly the maximum sentence allowed for an incident in which Omaha police shot him in the neck. This is clearly an attempt by the Omaha police and judicial system to cover up the fact that they nearly killed an unarmed man. Micah Taylor has done a lot of good for our community, collecting donations of clothing and toys for our children. He has a good heart for his people, for all people, and the Santee Sioux tribe strongly opposes Judge Otepka's harsh sentence of this young man. We also call on Omaha prison officials to take immediate action to remove the bullet that remains lodged in Micah Taylor's neck. Next, it is my pleasure and honor to introduce Michelle Free-Lemire. Michelle is a Winnebago mother to one 14-year-old daughter whom she homeschools. She is a recent graduate of the University of Nebraska-Lincoln, where she earned a bachelor's degree in elementary education. She holds an associate's degree in early childhood education from Little Priest Tribal College, and she has worked in the fields of emergency communication, law enforcement, fire service, and EMS, and is currently developing educational systems for Ho-Chunk language and culture. Thank you, Michelle, for coming and joining us tonight.
Pinikadagi, we know. Now, these are turbulent and volatile times that we're living in. There's a lot of mistrust. There's a lot of hatred, a lot of resentment, a lot of bad feelings. And we might ask ourselves, where does that come from? And I think we all know where that comes from. It has always existed here, but not to this extent. It has been fueled by the highest office in this land. It has been fueled so that we cannot and would not do what you all are doing right now, coming together in unity. They don't want us together. They don't want to see Native people and white people and black people and Asian people. They don't want us together. They want to make this about race, and it's not about race. This is about class. This is about the haves and the have-nots. And they're going to try to turn us against each other. They don't want Indians and white people to be united. They want us to be enemies. They want us to stand against each other and speak against each other. And we're not going to do that. We're not going to play their game. We need to show up for each other. This whole place should be full of all people of all colors. Because that's how we win. That's how we beat them. We beat them by showing up together. If a Native person has to go through injustice, then everybody should show up. If a black person faces injustice, all of us should show up. If a white person faces injustice, we should all show up. Nobody should stand alone. Least of all, Micah. Micah shouldn't have had to stand alone. He was alone in there. He had something that was shaped and looked like a lawyer beside him, but he needed a native lawyer. He needed an educated Indian beside him. And that is how we fight back. From the beginning of this country, they used academics as a weapon against our children. We're going to take that weapon and turn it back against them. We need educated children. We need educated Indians. That's how we win. Unity and education. So make sure you spend time with your children. Talk to them from when they're itty bitty babies. Talk, read, spend time with them, pay attention, stay off your phones. Pay attention to the children. Don't leave their education up to the system, to the institutions. Take charge of your own children's education. Take charge of how they think. They can give them facts and tell them what to learn, but we have to take charge of how they think. Which means we have to show them who their ancestors are. We have to show them the proud heritage that they come from. We have to make sure that they know the people who gave their lives so that they could live. So we need every single parent, not even just the parents. If you have a niece, a nephew, a neighbor, a friend, you need to pay attention to those children. And like I said before, Micah needed a lawyer in there. And we need more lawyers. We need more Indian lawyers. We need more black lawyers. We need more Asian and Hispanic lawyers. Because that is how they're getting us. They're getting us through the criminal justice system, through the civil justice system, through the legislature. They're getting us through the laws. And that's how we have to fight back. So make sure you go back to school. Even if it's online, even if it's one class, go back to school. Everybody, show the children how it's done. When I first started college, I flunked out. And it took me a long time to get back in there. I just graduated from UNL with distinction. So you can do it. It can be done. And just because somebody fails once, you don't give up. You keep going. You keep fighting. You learn from your mistakes. So everybody needs to go back to school. Even if it's just to show the little ones how it's done. To show them what can be accomplished when you don't give up. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Michelle, for those passionate words. I appreciate that. Well, family appreciates that as well. Next, I would like to introduce Akichida Hokushida, whom you might know better as Manape Lemire, the son of the late Frank Lemire. Akichida is a longtime social justice advocate and was one of the leaders of the water protectors of Standing Rock. He has worked to free himself from the constraints of Western civilization by renouncing his United States citizenship, as well as his citizenship in his own tribe, choosing to become a citizen of the 1851 and 1868 Fort Laramie Treaties. It is his hope, by renouncing all ties to the federal government, as well as the federally sponsored tribal government, he can better reconnect to his tribal roots and live as a truly free Dakota man. It is good to have you, Akichita Wokida Tanka.
Amatakiapi. Can you guys hear me?
You gotta pull the mic up. Hold it up to your mouth.
Oh, I don't need a mic.
No, we need it.
I want to thank everybody that's here today. You know, I on the drive down here, I had a long drive down here, and I had much to think about. And as soon as I got here, I was kind of thinking about some of the things to discuss, and I heard some things about this young boy and his family made some requests, and that moved me to hear a young man in the situation that he's in. And his concern is for the people, and the people that have maybe even less than he does. And I think that's very admirable. It makes me look up to him, his heart, the type of heart that he has. And to me, that sounds like a Dakota heart to me. Wanting to still serve the people where he's sitting. Thinking about relatives that may even have less than him. Still thinking about the work that he has done. I wish I would have known about those things even before this situation happened. And to me, we have to do something for that. We have to protect that. John Trudell said, protect your spirit, because you're in the place where your spirit gets eaten, and even more so in there. And I don't mean to make his family feel bad even more, but this, no disrespect to what he wants us to do with time, energy, and money. But at the same time, we can't allow them to think that they can do this. To hand out maximum sentences to good boys, to boys that make mistakes. It's as if there's no rehabilitation for him. They call it a correctional facility. What are they correcting?
Punishing.
That's right. There's no rehabilitation or correction. We have to protect his spirit. We have to preserve some of that. And at the very least, I think that's what we need to do. To speak to those parts of him and his family. I tried researching some things about this, and I think it very fundamentally comes down to that, to the spirit of this young boy. We have to fight for that and bring that back home as soon as we can. 26 years, 51 years, I've been through that system. 7 years in that system I've been in as an adult. And I'm very fortunate to come out a better human being than I was when I went in. At least I like to think so. And so as much as he has his request, I want to reassure the family, and I want the family to let him know that he doesn't have to be afraid. We'll take care of those things. We'll take care of those things for him. And there's plenty of us right here, just right here, that can help take care of the other stuff for him too. Mustering support to advocate for him. And mustering support to advocate for the things that he requested. But that means that we have to take responsibility. And sometimes we don't do that because we're in survival mode. It's hard enough to take responsibility in our own households. The system structures it so you're in your own silos. Your own reservations are silos. And even here as urban Indians, whose land is this? Whose is it? We get into these old rifts. We all move to Omaha or Sioux Falls or Sioux City. We all have the same cause. We got to look out for one another. That's what akichita means. To look at each other's, watch each other's back. A Santee relative told me some of that comes from World War II when they'd sit in planes. When they were about ready to parachute out. Akichita means to have each other's back. And so I want to reassure the family. And I want to encourage our relatives to think like that. How are we going to have each other's back? How are we going to set some of these things aside? We may not agree with each other all the time, but how are we going to truly work together and organize? And that's not just with the Indian community. We got to figure out how are we going to reach out to the African American community, the Hispanic community. My father would go to their protests all the time, supporting them because he knew if they got an inch with them, they'll definitely take it from us. And I think this is an example of that. To me, activism isn't getting up here and shouting. I was told that activism is about elevating the discussion. Okay? That means each and every one of us has at the very least responsibility to go home and throw this in your friend's face, whether they like it or not, whether they agree with you or not. They're going to say that you're right or wrong. Doesn't matter. Elevate the discussion. They should be talking about it at their dinner tables, at their Bible studies, at the bar. Get them talking about it. Even if they don't agree with you, get them talking about it. There's over 100 people here. Go and tell 4 people. Elevate that discussion for this young man. That's what that advocacy and activism is really about. Elevate it. And I imagine we'll probably have side discussions on how to encourage that. I want to thank Kevin and others that have asked relatives to come. This is wonderful to see for this young man. I'm sure it's encouraging for his family. But there's a lot of work to do, as they always say, there's a lot of work to do. But I think if we all take responsibility to some degree, we'll help move some things in a different direction for this young man. And I want to say I love you all, and you let him know that we love him too. And we'll do the best we can for him. Taumatakiase.
There are a few things more intimidating than following up Manape Lemire. So thank you, Manape, for your words. We appreciate that. At this time, we're going to have a song by Young Bucks. And we do have more speakers after this, so please stick around. But we're going to take a little short break here and enjoy some music here. Thank you.
Oh, Kola, English Micah, prayer song. Lakota Oyate.
have to tell you that my mind is very small. In the 2 weeks that I sat with Frank Lemire and Rudy Mitchell during the trial of Scotty Payne, who was accused of tasing Zachary Bearheels a dozen times before his death, I never imagined as I sat in that courtroom that one day this plaza in front of the courthouse might be filled with this beautiful music, these strong native voices, these melodic, wonderful female voices, indigenous women's voices. And to see the children out here on the grass just really fills my heart and gives me hope that we can make some real positive change here. So I want to thank you all for coming for that. Next, it's my pleasure and honor to introduce a good friend of mine, a fellow champion of social justice here in Omaha, Lavelle Wells. Lavelle is a citizen of the Omaha tribe of Nebraska. He is a member of the Elk clan of his tribe and is president of Big Elk Native American nonprofit organization. He is also a member of Mayor Gene Stothard's Native American Advisory Board here in Omaha. Thank you for joining us today, Lavelle.
First of all, I'd like to thank everybody showing up. It means a lot, you know. I've met Micah a couple times, you know, and it just breaks my heart that he received 50 years. My God, killers, pedophiles, rapists don't get that much time. I'm very disheartened. You know, I lost connection with Diana, you know, in this movement. She asked me a few times to speak up, you know, and I was so busy doing other things. I feel kind of, you know, feel bad about that. Really, I do. Because here in Omaha, it ain't too many natives trying to step up, you know. Sometimes I feel like on an island by myself, you know, and that gets discouraging sometimes, you know, and but I'm compelled to do more for my peoples, because if we don't say nothing, who else gonna speak for us? They definitely ain't. You see what they did to Micah on something really small that got something big, you know. It's a crying shame. Shame on Omaha itself and all these people that say they love our culture. They come to our powwows, come to our events. Where they at? About the injustice and the struggle of our peoples. Where they at? Is my question. I put a post on Facebook, asked the same question. You love our culture, you love our powwows, you love everything else about us, but the injustice of our peoples. Show up. So this powwow coming up at Metro, I have nothing against it. I spoke there a couple times. That's my college. I graduated a couple years ago. But watch and see. It's going to be 1,000 people there loving our people, loving our culture, but they hate our people. They can say what they want, but that's what it is. And like the earlier speaker said, I grew up, unfortunately, I took a wrong turn. I grew up in Logan Finell Projects. You know, I was what they called a thug, a blood gang member. You know, something that I deserved 50 years. Nothing Mike did. It's night and day for me and him when I was young. It's just a crying shame. I'm president of a nonprofit here. It's called Big Elk. Big Elk was our last traditional chief of the Omaha Nation, of these lands that we reside on right now. But we don't have no recognition. There's no statues, nothing. A lot of people is ignorant to the word Omaha. It deprives from our tribe. I'm on the mayor's board, and like the late great Frank said, they just want to pat us on the head and keep moving, and that's what's been going on in the meetings. You know, mayor she only showed up maybe once. Other times she got her chief of staff. It's like Native American 101. And I heard from a couple other people. My God, I didn't know the natives had that many problems. That's what they told me. But he said that twice to a couple other people. You know, and it tells you the ignorance what they have for our peoples. They want us dead and gone, just like yesteryears. But I'm here to fight. I'm here to unite. I know we all bring differences and whatnot, but I'm down for this cause. Free Micah. 50 years. My God. like I said, I'm a lifelong Omaha. I've been here all my life, and I know how they work. I know how they work, and I had a great teacher. We had just lost a great teacher, one of a kind, Dr. Frank Lemire, and I'm very honored that I was here fighting with him a few times on the Bear Hairs case, and I'm using his spirit. It's my time. It's time, for people to step up, and I can do better. I definitely can do better because I'm not afraid. I'm not a criminal no more. I ask the hard questions, and I'm gonna ask more. But this is really, it's such an injustice. I don't know what to say. But I'm glad for everybody here. That's a positive thing. If we could keep the conversation going, that'd be great. I have if you can go on a website, Big Elk Native American nonprofit, join, and I'll be having some more meetings setting up real soon. Got a couple churches that give me spaces. I would love for people to show up and keep this discussion going. Free Micah signs, let's have some rallies once a week. Omaha's too big not to have something for our peoples. This is a start. This is definitely a start. I can be reached at Lavelle Wells on social media, Facebook, Big Elk Native American nonprofit. Let's come together. Let's help me out. Let's help each other out. And free Micah. And do other things for our natives. Far too often, I'm out in the streets. I'm out here hitting the pavement with my native people. Every time I see somebody, my natives, I jump out the car, give them a couple of dollars. I know what they may do with it, but it's the love I have for my peoples. We have a lot of opportunities here in this town. They may have an organization for natives, but their heart's not in it. They're in it for the money. They may hurt to hear me say that, but I'm speaking the truth. I see what I see. It is what it is. But if we have more people, allies stepping up, helping each other so we can unite and have some visibility for our peoples, to uplift our peoples, that's what it's all about. With that, I'll close. Thanks for listening.
Thank you, Lavelle, for those powerful words. Next, it's my honor and pleasure to introduce Eli Rigatuso. Eli is a longtime Omaha resident who identifies as a queer, transmasculine two-spirit of the Menominee Nation. He is an artist, photographer, and video producer and director. Eli Rigatuso has experience as on-air talent using his voice to help move the needle toward more inclusive spaces for folks who have intersecting identities. He is here today because he knows and has lived with systems of oppression that are so prevalent in our nation. Thank you for joining us tonight, Eli.
Thank you. I'm going to read something first. I just want you to listen to these words, and then I'll tell you where it comes from. Some of you may have heard this. I'm hoping the natives in the area have heard this. Their hearts drop when they hear these drums and hear our songs. Tired of being oppressed, we're standing strong now. You can't whitewash this white war. You can't speak about people you don't fight for. They say these wars never ended, descending from the spirit, singing songs of freedom, our ghosts make you hear it. Genocide never ended, descended from the spirit, singing songs of truth, their lives make you fear it. Way of life never ended, descended from the spirit, singing songs of freedom, our ghosts make you hear it. Revolution never ended, descended from the spirit, singing songs of hope, hoping my people hear it. Those are the words of Frank Walm. He's an indigenous musician from the Rosebud Nation. If you haven't heard of him, go listen to his music. Because I want to tell you something. I'm whitewashed. I was a little embarrassed to even be asked to be here today. I'm first generation born off the reservation in 1965, right here in Omaha, Nebraska. I was taught to not be proud of that part of me. My birth certificate even says that I'm white. Here's what's interesting, though. I still lived a similar life to what my mom lived going to the boarding schools because she believed what they told her to. And she sent all 4 of her kids to Catholic grade school. And they treated us the same way. They treated the dark-skinned kids, which, let me tell you, there were 2 of us. The same way they treated the kids in the boarding schools. But I didn't make any of these connections. I'll tell you more about that in a minute. Upon hearing about what has happened and continues to happen to our young brother Micah Taylor, it makes my heart ache. When I was asked to speak tonight, I'll be honest, I did not feel worthy of the privilege to speak on his behalf. But I knew inside I needed to help uplift his voice, his narrative, our narrative. Micah has done so much on the groundwork for our indigenous community for years, and he is only 20. Since he was a young man, he's literally been giving away gifts that were given to him because his heart aches so bad for those less fortunate than himself, and he didn't come from a lot either. He's rallied people together to collect necessities and personally delivered them to Standing Rock in support of our family who were protesting the pipeline there. And he did this more than once. There were a number of questions that popped into my head as I read the narrative being spun by the local police department, and none of what I was reading made me feel better about the discriminatory behavior being perpetuated upon Micah. Reading it only left me with more questions than answers, more anger and frustration than peace of mind. When I see the photos of Micah, I see my family. I see a young man with his entire life ahead of him, and I weep. I weep for the injustice bestowed now upon him because of a system of oppression that had him painted as guilty long before his trial. The same system that has had him at a disadvantage ever since he was a child. A young man without roots searching for a place to call home. The oppressors are in the speakers. Are we running low on battery? Woo. Woo. A visionary with hopes and dreams for a better life for our people. I am Micah. Micah is me. Micah is us. I am of indigenous descent, and in 2015, at the tender age of 50, I came out as transgender. Since the 1990s, I have identified as two-spirit because of the ancestral and familial trauma I had not had the courage or access to deal with. I didn't have the mental capacity to understand all I was feeling in my mind and in my heart and what it meant for me. I've spent the past 4 years steeped in learning about the impact of white supremacy and these systems of oppression, that what the impact has been on me and all of us. Micah has also been looking for his way to channel all that he was feeling that was given to him, passed down from generation to generation through his bloodline, his ancestry. He couldn't hardly even explain what he was feeling in his body, and I know how that feels. I know to have all that energy and not know how to channel it or where to take it or what to do with it, because I was never taught by my ancestors, because my heritage was stripped from me generations upon generations ago. My aunts and uncles believed that they couldn't be who they really were. I interviewed my uncle when he was 80. He He served in the military. He was a veteran. I asked him, what are you most proud of in your life? And he said, my military service. I then asked him, what is your biggest regret? His biggest regret is that he never learned his native tongue in his lifetime. He died a year later. Micah is all about kindness and love. He wasn't out to harm anyone. As a matter of fact, he was only out to bring goodness and peace to his people, because that is what he has always desired for himself. Goodness and peace. He carries the trauma of all the brave ancestors before him who fought for our sovereignty, and now he's fighting for his own freedom. He must deal with an unjust system of oppression's skewed view of his indigenous self. Feel free to clap. I'm fine with that. What do you suppose would have happened if this interaction involved a young white man? That's a rhetorical statement because we all know what happens to young white men. We see it in the news all the time. They have the power and the privilege and the access to secure their place in the world through a system set up for them. They find leniency even after crimes that are committed that are more horrific than Micah's. They're painted as confused young men who panic and spend hardly a week in jail in comparison. What has happened to Micah is not equality before the law. This is not justice. This is not innocent until proven guilty. Micah was guilty in the minds of those officers before they even pulled him over that fateful day. He showed remorse in court and still had the book thrown at him. And now we can only hope that the system doesn't completely swallow his spirit too. I know he will be grateful to know we stood here in solidarity with him. I know and I hope many of you here today will also make it a point to communicate with him personally. I hope that what you heard today resonates within your heart and makes you be in action against all discrimination. We are intersectional. Our issues are intersectional. We need to find those places where we can come together, where we can stand strong and united, where we can put away our troubles of the past and move forward strongly in the same direction. I accepted this offer to come speak today because my mother lives in a home. She has dementia. I don't know if she'll live another day, another week, another month, or another year. But I do know one thing. Even when she doesn't remember me, she looks at me and smiles. And it makes me feel good. It makes me be proud to be her son. To be with my family today. I love you all.
I apologize about the sound system here. I think it's completely out now, so the rest of our speakers will have to stand up on the steps here. Thank you so much, Eli, for your powerful words. Really resonate to us. I appreciate that. That's a powerful message that we need to find the places where we intersect, where we have common interests. I think that's vital in these times when so much of us are under attack. So, thank you for that. Next, it's my honor to introduce April Satchel. I first heard April's moving words during legislative testimony on a bill that was heard and approved by the Nebraska legislature earlier this year that will help Nebraska authorities better gather information about missing and murdered Indigenous women. April spoke from experience that day, with her granddaughter on her lap, and I think her words certainly helped convince state senators to approve legislation to better understand the plight of missing and murdered Indigenous women. As a Chongu Lakota woman, she is the founder of the Lakota Tribes of the Nebraska Network, and is a 22-year special education parent advocate. But she may be best well known for her 20-year career as the Midwest's only female Indigenous rapper. Thank you, April, for joining us today.
Nebraska. Can you hear me? All my brothers and sisters, thank you.
Closer, too. That might help.
Thank you. Micah needs this. So does... I have a whole list here. So if you lend me your ear, I'd like to recap according to 19-year veteran officer's words of his version of what happened that day. Incident at Highway 75 and Lake Street. Officer involved shooting. Thursday, March 8, 2018. Now this is a update. Micah Taylor was released from the hospital and booked at Douglas County Corrections for assault on an officer. Flight to avoid risk, delivery of a controlled substance, marijuana being that controlled substance. Where I come from, that's medicine. Possession of a deadly weapon, being a pair of brass knuckles they found in the trunk. Okay? In which they charged him for having during the commission of a felony and some old warrant. Approximately 2:15 p.m., members of Omaha Police Gang Unit were conducting a surveillance operation on a controlled drug transaction involving Mr. Micah Taylor. The operation included gang officers, uniformed police officer, David Staskowitz, an ATF agent, and Able One. So we're talking about a helicopter gang unit, and if you're not familiar, sometimes the gang unit will have dual roles. It'll act as the drug unit as well. So, Taylor, let's see, Able One and officer, say it one more time for me.
Staskowitz,
okay. Who was driving a marked OPD cruiser, were staged during the operation. After the drug transaction, officers followed Taylor in his beige Toyota Camry, eastbound on Ames Avenue. As Taylor's vehicle continued eastbound on Ames, AB1 pilots spotted Taylor's vehicle and utilized their video surveillance equipment. So, at this point, every bit of, what is being described is what you would consider a controlled situation, would you not? We've got the eye in the sky, we've got gang unit, we've got, they even mentioned a DEA agent, as well as a uniformed officer. So, during the traffic stop, Officer Staskowitz asked Taylor for his license, registration, and insurance. Taylor was verbally non-compliant, but eventually provided the officer with the requested items. After that, the officer asked Taylor to step out of the vehicle, however, he did not comply. Seconds later, Staskowitz opened Taylor's driver's side door and grabbed Taylor's arm while telling him to get out of the vehicle. At this time, Micah has asked, why am I being pulled over? What is it? And the officer tells him this is a traffic stop. At this point, Micah is not under under the impression that he has been involved in a controlled buy. Okay, so he's under the impression this is a routine traffic stop. Seconds later, like I said, the officer opened Taylor's driver's side door, grabbed Taylor's arm while telling him to get out of the vehicle. A struggle ensued while Officer Stashkowitz, while still holding onto Taylor's arm, gave Taylor multiple verbal commands to stop. At that point, the officer stepped back and unholstered his firearm. Taylor drove forward, which resulted in Stashkowitz being pulled alongside Taylor's vehicle. He fired 3 rounds as he was being dragged and fell to the ground. The use of deployment sticks, because Taylor did take off. Taylor took off after being shot in the neck. What traffic stop do you know are you asked to be taken out of your vehicle? What traffic stop have you ever been involved with? Does the officer reach back one hand, and unholster his gun? Here, the officer says that, he was drugged, and at that time, that's when he shot at Micah. Ain't no way he shot at Micah being drugged. He was shot in the neck. Taylor, this is after the sticks, were employed, whatever. Taylor immediately exited his vehicle with his arms raised and complied with officers as he was taken into custody without any use of force. 3 of the officers who took Taylor into custody had worn body cameras. According to Stashkowitz's radio account of the initial encounter, Taylor moved to grab something in the center console of his car and was turning back towards the officer when the officer fired his gun. In his radio, account, he said Taylor moved to grab something in the center console of his car and was turning back towards the officer when the officer fired his gun. Radio dispatch responded by saying, "Did he shoot you?" The officer responded over the police radio by saying, "No, I saw the money." He grabbed towards the center console. He started spinning towards me, and I shot him.
Thank you for saying that. Say it again. You saw the money, and you shot him.
According to Stashkowitz, his radio account of the initial encounter, Taylor moved to grab something in the center console of his car and was turning back towards the officer when the officer fired his gun. Did he shoot at you? That was what was asked over the radio when he called in. He says, "No, I saw the money," is how the officer responded. He grabbed towards the center console and he started spinning towards me, so I shot him. As a result of the alleged dragging, because his In this controlled situation with the eye in the sky, we've got gang unit, DEA agent. The only injury or threat was when that officer reached into Micah's car. When he held on to Micah. With all of that backup, knowing who he was, when a normal person have let him go and got him out another day? What part of that, and what part of this, at this point, was the right, for that officer's right to, with legal force, it wasn't there. As a result of being drugged, he had to have hip surgery to repair a torn labrum and shoulder surgery to repair a torn cuff radiator. He also suffered chronic back problems. I looked up labral tears. No doubt some are a result of an injury, but sometimes they're just part of the aging process. We're talking about a 19-year police veteran. I'm 44 and I feel like I got some ailments already, I want to tell you about another person's story and just follow me if you will. A 43-year-old Lincoln man was jailed Thursday after driving from a traffic stop with a Lincoln police officer in his car, according to a court document. LaPrice Wilkinson was spotted by Officer Brianna Gasson running a red light at 9th and O around 5 a.m. Gasson stopped Wilkinson at 9th and E. As she approached his car, Gasson wrote in the document that she could smell marijuana and fruity air freshener. So that made her call for backup. After telling Wilkinson she stopped him from running the red light, Gaston asked if he had any weed in the car, any marijuana in the car, and he handed her over a blunt. As they began walking back to Gaston's cruiser. Again, this is a routine traffic stop. At what point do you ask the individual to get out of the vehicle? If somebody asks me to get out of the vehicle in a traffic stop, I'm gonna resist. I do not feel safe. And especially if I were to be pulled over here with the reputation Omaha Police Department has, I'm going to the nearest public space I can and I'm trying to get me as many witnesses as possible. As they began to walk back to Gaston's cruiser, Wilkinson tried returning to his car, pushing past the officer, jumping in and shutting the door. Officer Gaston managed to reopen the door and tried turning off the car, but Wilkinson began driving away, the documents say, about 100 feet. Gaston wrote, as I was screaming and trying to get the car to shut off and then park, while she tried to get a hold of the gear shift, the car crossed to the north side of East Street, hit a curb, knocking her out of the car and injuring her knee, the document says. At that point, Wilkinson ran from the scene. A responding officer was able to arrest him after a foot chase. Wilkinson had almost 10 pounds of weed. You hear what he did to this officer. He received 1 year for the assault on the officer and 1 year on possessing over a pound of marijuana. The lawyer he had, however, was top 100 in the nation. In a code 3 run or pursuit, an officer's worst enemy is an adrenaline overload. The speed, siren, and desire to apprehend can cause an officer's adrenaline level to soar. Once the huge adrenaline dump occurs, things go from bad to worse. Tunnel vision and or target fixation can set in. Find complex motor skills diminish, and short-term memory, which is the creative and reasoning part of the brain, can essentially shut down, leaving an officer with nothing more than long-term memory and primal emotional instincts to operate with. The potential for adrenaline overload during a pursuit is tremendous, particularly for younger, inexperienced officers. That second story I told you about, second incident involving an officer assaulting an officer, marijuana. Officer Brianna Gaston was only an 8-year veteran at that point. All through what she had been through, she did not enforce like the other officer did. She did not unholster her gun, and she did not shoot at LaPriest Wilkinson. However, the officer involved in Micah Taylor's did, and he shot him in the neck. Native Americans are killed in police encounters at a higher rate than any other racial or ethnic group, according to data from the Center for Disease Control and Prevention. Yet rarely do these deaths gain the national spotlight. For every 1 million Native American, an average of 2.9 of them die annually. From 1999 to 2015, as a result of legal intervention. The vast majority of these deaths were police shootings, but a few were attributed to other causes, including manhandling. The mortality rate is 12% higher for African Americans and 3 times the rate of whites. The data available likely does not capture all of Native American deaths and police encounters due to people of mixed races and relatively homeless populations are not on the grid. And according to Indigenous Law and Policy Center at Michigan State, in 1996, American Indian mortality rates were underreported by an estimated 21% because of inconsistencies in identifying Native Americans on death certificates, according to the Center for Disease Control. Native Americans are often stereotyped as being violent, addicted to alcohol and drugs. Those perceptions, whether conscious or not, tinge police and citizen-civilian interactions. U.S. police killings, according to a study called What the Data Tells Us, which was published December 4th, 2018, gunshots seem to be the cause of death in more than 90% of the cases. Let me put it to you, and let me sum it up for you. There were 2,021, well, altogether there was 2,226 cases to be exact. Of those 2,226, 2021 was those killed in custody, which is the second leading cause of death, at least for 82 of the killings, which was slightly higher than those killed by gunshots in all but Midwest region. You know what that's telling you? We're being shot in the Midwest. When people don't trust the government and criminal justice system, they are less likely to rely on the law to solve conflicts. Perhaps it's the lax legal standards that allow cops to justify deadly force against suspects who pose no danger, and sometimes are only perceived to pose a threat to officers because cops hold racial biases that are endemic in the criminal justice system. Constitutionally, police officers are allowed to shoot under two circumstances. The first circumstance is to protect their life or the life of another innocent party. What departments call the defense of life standard. The second circumstance is to prevent a suspect from escaping, but only if the officer has probable cause to link the suspect poses a dangerous threat to others. The key of both the legal standards, defense of life, used. Instead, what matters is the officer's objectively reasonable belief that there is a threat. I do not feel Micah posed any threat to that officer at all. The only threat came was from that officer. It came when he opened his door. It came when he grabbed him by the arm with one hand and one-handed unholstered his gun, took it out, and shot him.
And if he was afraid of him, why did he grab him?
Exactly. In a Tennessee versus Garner, the court ruled that cops couldn't shoot every felon who tried to escape. We have to get beyond what is legal and start focusing on what is preventable. Most are preventable. We need the police to stop chasing down suspects, hopping fences, and landing on top of someone with a gun. When they do that, they have no choice but to shoot. Years of life lost from police violence were greatest among younger age groups across racial and ethnic groups. The highest proportions of those killed was among Native Americans, who were killed by police at a rate of 7.8 per 1 million people. Police violence disproportionately impacts young people. The young people affected are disproportionately people of color. They took a new approach to tallying the effects of police shootings and killings, calculating and including life lost. Native Americans, African Americans are victims in 20% of police shootings. Now, we apply that same method. Black women and American Indian and Alaskan Native women are at a much higher risk of being killed by police than a white woman ever will be. In that same token, it's unfortunate that our Native women, they suffer rape, abuse 3 times higher than any other race. The Department of Justice was called to examine the investigation in the 2016 fatal shooting of L'Oreal Chisholm, a young Native woman who stood only 5 feet and weighed less than 100 pounds. She turns her back towards one of the officers with the scissors in her hand pointed down. The officers shoot her 4 times, twice in the front and twice in the back. Zachary Bearhills committed no crime, according to Douglas County Attorney Donald Klein. At least that's what he said at a press conference. Zachary Bearhills was simply a human being suffering from a severe mental illness that was quite obvious to anyone who came in contact with him.
If he had a mental illness, why was he getting caught?
Huh?
If he had a mental illness, why was he getting caught?
Why would, no, he wasn't. He was killed by police.
My apologies.
Yes. So was L'Oreal. She too was somebody who had gentlemen from my tribe, from Rapid City, was the same. Held a knife to his own self. It is evident 19-year veteran Dave
Saskowitz
made a life-threatening decision for Micah Taylor in less than the 2-minute time lapse from when the traffic stop was initiated and Taylor sped away. A controlled stop, such as this one was, with helicopter, gang task force, again, let me repeat to you in his words what he said. According to his radioed account of the initial encounter, Taylor moved to grab something in the center console of the car and was turning back towards when the officer fired his gun. Dispatch asked the officer, "Did he shoot at you?" He responded by saying, "No, I saw the money." He grabbed towards the center console. He started spitting towards me. I shot him. This does not merit use of force. The first circumstance is to protect their life or the life of another party, correct? What departments call the defensive life standard. The second circumstance is to prevent a suspect from escaping, but only if the officer has probable cause to think the suspect poses a dangerous threat to others. The key to both of the legal standards, defense of life and fleeing of a violent felony, is that it doesn't matter whether there is actual threat or when force is used. Instead, what matters is the officer's objectively reasonable belief that there is a threat. Again, Micah posed. The threat came when that officer reached into that car, when he grabbed him by his arm and with the other arm unholstered his gun. I do believe that Micah tried to get away. I would have done anything to keep being in that situation. He was shot in his neck. Every bit of the accounts in that officer's words, from beginning to the end, he complied. So where was the threat? The judge made an emphasis on the injury sustained by 19-year veteran. However, he was treated and released the same night. Same night. All this pain, all this injury, you would have thought a gentleman of that age would have stayed longer than that. Hip busted up, shoulder busted up, back pain. He should have stayed longer if you know, those injuries were sustained from that incident. I am so proud of every one of you that is here. I'm so proud that you came to support, help bring awareness, because we're dying. They're killing us out here. We've got our sisters going missing and our men being shot and murdered. This isn't right. It's not right at all, you know. Micah, 30 to 50 years. The other incident that I told you about was a little more, you know, LaPriest didn't get shot in the neck. However, the officer was drugged, knocked out. However, whatever. I wanted to illustrate to you not only the difference in the legal representation, you know. His life was just, there you go. It meant nothing. And he must mean something. We've all come together. Again, justice for Micah Taylor. Thank you.
April, you always surprise me. Being an indigenous rapper, I always assume you're going to appeal to our emotions or love of music, and you bring facts and figures and statistics instead to us, and I appreciate that because that tells the story as well. So thank you so much. At this time, I want to introduce a man named Luis, and Luis is ambassador of the Maya government to the Omaha Nation, and he would like to share a few words with you tonight. Thank you, Luis, for joining us.
Good evening. It is so nice to see so many familiar faces. My name is Luis Marcos. I belong to the Maya Nation from Central America. Colonial states occupying our territory includes the southern part of Mexico, the entire state of Guatemala, the entire state of Belize, and the northwestern portion of El Salvador and Honduras. Our colonial states on our homeland. And I have the highest respect for what Lenape Lamir has done in renouncing his citizenship here. Truly, these states are not only illegally but immorally on our respective homelands. What we are witnessing tonight is the continued implementation of what it is called the Doctrine of Discovery. Raise your hands if you have heard about it. The Doctrine of Discovery is this series of papal rules that came up during what they call the Age of Discovery, 1500s. Basically, it refers to indigenous peoples as savages, enemies of Christ, and the Pope at the time gave permission to the invaders to capture us, to enslave us, to kill us. And those words became institutionalized in a case known as the Johnson v. McIntosh. There is the Permanent Forum on Indigenous Peoples have issued a study. It's called the Study of the Impact on the Doctrine of Discovery on Indigenous Peoples. Basically, to them we're animals. To them we are not amount to human beings. They have taken away our humanity so that to justify the taking away of our lands. And so tonight we're here on the homeland of the Omaha Nation. From the Maya people, conservatively, there is at least very easily 1 million people of Maya origin living in the United States. That probably makes us the biggest displaced indigenous peoples in urban areas. If numbers count, let us come together and use it. Because what they have done is they have divided us by borders. We don't see each other as indigenous people sometimes because we come from south of the borders, but reality is we are facing the same thing, the same issues that you face up here, we're facing down there. I am here because during the 1980s, recruiting people, young people like myself at the time, to get into the military service, to be trained and kill my own people. That's the reason I am here, escaping that genocide. And so I really don't want to keep you more. I want to be brief, but my favorite sign is out there somewhere there. It says, justice for natives equals justice for all. No one is free until everyone is free. As indigenous peoples, our fight is not only for ourselves, our fight is for the human family. We are fighting for water, but it's not only indigenous peoples that drink water. We all drink water. It's not only indigenous peoples that breathe the air, everyone does. We all need Mother Earth. We're protecting Mother Earth. So what we're witnessing today is the continuous implementation of the Doctrine of Discovery. We ask the Catholic Church to dismantle the Doctrine of Discovery. And so when you go back to your faith traditions, your pastors, talk to them about, do they know about the Doctrine of Discovery? I am so happy to see so many young people from so many different backgrounds. And again, this is about information. Information is power. We are here to empower, not to make anyone feel guilty or not to make anyone feel ashamed of history, but we are here to empower with information, but because to act out of ignorance, it's not good. So we have to know, but we have to have a common understanding of our history. Thank you. It's really a distinct honor to be here among so many eloquent speakers here tonight, and thank you very much.
Thank you for those very wise words, Luis, and it's a great honor to meet you. So thank you so much for that. Next, I'd like to introduce somebody that I just met. His name is John Keene, and he's a lawyer here in town. Apparently works in this building. and he's a former Omaha tribal officer and a citizen of the Omaha Nation. It's my pleasure to introduce John Keene tonight. Thank you so much.
I wanted to say a few words tonight to put my perspective on this. I work in this building quite often. I practice law, and I'm sorry he misspoke. I was an Omaha City police officer and a Douglas County deputy sheriff as well. So I understand this process, and I defend criminal defendants all the time. I spend a lot of time in these hallways, and I see it day after day after day, the wrongs that are done to our people. I fight it, I argue against it, but that's all we can do. We're doing what we can do. And it is what it is. The other side of the thought is, when I'm in there and I'm in that courtroom, I don't see many other natives except in handcuffs in that jury box, I'd love to see more natives sitting at council table like I am. I don't know why that is, but it is what it is. I'm the only recognizable native trial attorney that walks these halls. And I fight these injustices all the time. But what can one man do? This is beautiful. This is what we're supposed to do. And the other thing I want to say is, when we want to fight an injustice, we can't speak generally. When you speak generally that we're being done wrong and this and that, and they say, well, what do you want done? Where's your specific relief? Well, we need to fight each injustice as it comes up specifically. We need to call it by name. We need to call those individual police officers out. We need to go to the prosecutor's office. You guys need to call me and have me come down and raise holy hell over that specific case. So the next time, they'll think twice before they cause an injustice like what has happened. Because I will. There are a few of us. There's not many of us, but there's a few of us that will do it, and I will do it. I have no problem walking in those doors. I'm in there all the time. And I like this. We need to keep it specific when we talk about just in general being done injustice. Well, it just kind of bounces off people, They say, yeah, we agree. But what are you going to do about it? Pick a specific action and go after it. Get that police officer fired. I used to be Omaha police. I was Douglas County Sheriff, too. I know what goes on. I've seen it. I've been there. I work in these hallways now. I'm in a unique position to understand this situation. And the only thing I can say is we need to keep it specific. If we go general, then people say, yeah, we agree with your cause, and they go home and go sleep. But if you give them a specific cause to take up, maybe a few more people will pick it up and run with it. Maybe we can get something done. And I don't agree absolutely, obviously, with what happened here. But we have to elevate ourselves too, you know. We give them too many openings, and that has to stop. We have to educate our youth. We have to work at it from our level down all the way up. That's just the way it is, you know. We're at a disadvantage, and we always will be. But if I can make it into those hallways and those courtrooms, anybody can. Because I'm not the smartest guy in the world. But I hope you guys understand what I'm trying to say. Yes.
So John, would you be willing to help us file an appeal on behalf of Micah?
I will.
Okay. About as specific as it gets. Thank you. Appreciate it. Next, I'd like to introduce John Papan. He's a member of the Native American community here in Omaha, and he's been asked by Deanna Taylor, Micah's mother, to say a few words on her behalf.
I want to thank everyone for still being here. To me, these are the people that really care about Micah and care about Native justice. So I want to thank you all for being patient and for listening and for staying here, each and every one of you. First of all, I wanted to convey what Deanna told me. Deanna says, "My heart is broken. They've labeled Micah a high security risk. They won't take him to a specialist for medical treatment unless we pay for transportation, which they say it would be very expensive. So they're just making excuses for not treating him, hoping maybe that bullet will eventually do what it was meant to do by that officer to kill him. But I don't think that's going to happen, because all the prayers that have been said for Micah matter. And let me say that prayers do work. And there is a power. The spirits are here, each and one of you. You may not be able to see them, but they are here. And the spirit of Frank Lemire is here too. My good brother Frank has done so much for the people. He said someone has to step up. Someone has to carry on to fight. So that's what we're doing. All of us. You may feel like you're the only person, but you're not, because you always have the spirits with you, your relatives, your ancestors. Never forget that. We have an unseen host of army of spirits that are with us. They're listening, they're watching. We know that prayers are powerful. Once again, I just wanted to make it short because I know it's a long day and all of you are here. And thank you from the bottom of my heart. I've known Micah since he was a teenager. I've seen him grow. And I've taken him to the sweat lodge in Nipi. I wanted to mold him into a fine young man who prayed, who learned his native ways. And yes, they didn't believe me, even the so-called lawyer. He didn't believe that Micah was coming to pick me up to go to lodge that night. The police, of course, didn't believe. But I'm telling you right now, even if I have to sign an affidavit to that effect, he was coming to see me. But he never showed up, so I have found another ride. But he's a good boy. He's a good young man. He does not deserve to spend the rest of his life in prison. So thank you, each and every one of you. And let's get this done. Free Micah! Free Micah!
Thank you, John. Thank you, Deanna, for those words. I want to thank everyone for joining us tonight. I want to thank the Nebraskans for Peace, the Dandelion Network. Actually, Jordan Hasselbach from the Dandelion Network is here. Would you like to say anything, Jordan? Okay. Thank you for being here. We appreciate your presence. We appreciate your support. Dandelion Network. Dandelion Network is a grassroots disaster relief organization in Lincoln, Nebraska. And they've done a lot for the Native community there, so I'm always appreciative of their efforts. I also want to thank the Lincoln Indian Center for supporting this event as well. And of course, I want to say with all humility, I want to thank Micah Taylor and his family for allowing us to share our thoughts and prayers with you tonight. I can't imagine what the days ahead will be like for you. And if there's anything you need from me, I certainly want to tell you that I'm here. That I'm here to help you in any way I can. So thank you so much. Closing up, I'd like to ask for a song by the Young Bucks, and with that, we'll end the activities tonight. Thank you so much for joining us all. Oh. I guess they've already left. My apologies. So I guess that's it. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Oh, you want to say? Okay. Monopoly Lemire is offered to sing a song, so let's do that. Thank you. In honor of this young Dakota boy, I want to offer encouragement to him and to all of us. And and this song talks about being a Dakota, Nakota, Lakota, and to be brave. To be brave, and I'm gonna send this song out to him to be brave in whatever he's gonna face. Dakota, Nakota.
He's like